The most hateful way to punish a scumbag is to make him lose the right to be a man. This day when the man was watching the action movie, he was suddenly knocked open by two hot girls. He said it was raining and his phone was in the water. "Can you come in and make a phone call?" Evan wanted to say no, but he saw the two of them all wet. A moment of pity was created, so he generously invited them in. He also warmly called a car for them, but it took 45 minutes for the car to arrive. He then provided the two of them with warm pajamas and then dried their clothes. I didn't expect the girl to have an unintentional physical contact. Evan, who felt something was wrong, quickly played the music of Andy Lau and tried to calm himself down. I didn't expect the music to come up just then. The girl jumped up, waving her hand, and then pulled Evan's hand to hug her. Just when the two of them were about to kiss, the ringtone of the phone suddenly rang. It turned out that the date car had arrived. Evan hurriedly took out his clothes from the dryer. But when he reached the bathroom door, the two girls were still inside and refused to come out. Evan was worried that the date car would leave before he could wait. He had to block his eyes and walk into the bathroom to chase the two of them. But the scene inside made him lose control of his body. Under the pressure of the two girls, Evan eventually gave up his resistance and surrendered. The next day when Evan woke up, he thought the two girls had left last night. He didn't want to come to the kitchen and found that they didn't just leave, but also messed up the kitchen. He yelled at the two of them to get out of their houses. When they came back, they would leave obediently. As a result, they turned around and destroyed the wife's artwork. This made Evan even more angry. He took out his cell phone and wanted to call the police. But the next thing the girl said made Evan cold-blooded. They said they were still underage. And they didn't take a shower after last night. If they called the police, Evan would be in prison for at least 20 years. Hearing this, Evan panicked. Evan proposed to use money to solve the problem. But what they wanted was not money. At this time, the appointment therapist just came up. Evan ran out to find an excuse to hit the other party. Jenny deliberately ran out to make trouble and let the therapist misunderstand their relationship. Evan couldn't bear it and strangled Jenny's neck to death. Seeing that Jenny was about to die, Evan eventually let go of his hands. But he quickly dialed the police phone and found that Evan was coming for real. Jenny hung up the phone immediately and let Evan send them away. Now they can finally get rid of them. But it's not that simple. When Evan came home, he started cleaning the house. At night, he watched the action movie again. Suddenly, a sound came out. He hurriedly went to the living room to check. It turned out that the photo had fallen to the ground. Evan just squat down to pick it up and was knocked out by Jenny from behind. The two girls came back. When he woke up again, he was already tied to the bed. Bill wore his daughter's clothes and wanted to play a pervert game with him. Evan didn't even think about it. Bill was so angry that he slapped him directly. Then he pulled out his hair and shook his head. Jenny on the other side calmly put on makeup and messed up Evan's wife's cosmetics. Suddenly, Jenny heard a dog barking outside. Bill went out to check the situation. Evan found the right time and tried to turn the woman on him over to the ground. Then he tried his best to untie the handcuffs and rushed to the living room to stop Jenny. As he knew that he had a fork in his hand, he hit his shoulder fiercely by Jenny. That was the position where Evan had just finished the surgery. Jenny kept spinning the fork. Evan soon passed out. When he woke up again, he was already tied to the bed. And his nightmare had just begun. Jenny put on his suit and Bill put on his wife's dress. They played the host of the show and let Evan participate in a quick question and answer. Bill put on his headphones on Evan's head and then pulled out the underwear in his mouth. Evan was so angry that he yelled at him. Jenny turned up the volume of the headphones. No. My ears. I'm gonna die. When Evan finally calmed down, he announced that the game had officially begun. Bill took out a plate with a question written on it. Jenny read the option with shock. But the question had nothing to do with the option. Evan couldn't help but yell at him again. Jenny was so angry that she raised the volume of the headphones again. The two girls were immersed in the game and didn't stop at all. Suddenly, a bell rang in the door. It was Evan's buddy George. Bill was in a hurry to block Evan's mouth and used a sheet to cover him up. But Jenny opened the door. She pretended to be Evan's niece. George saw the floor was full of garbage after he came in. She opened the cloth to cover the sculpture, and found that the artwork on display had been turned into garbage. She looked at her beloved baby being trampled on. George's asthma suddenly became difficult to breathe. He quickly inhaled 2 doses of asthma medicine and didn't fall. He recognized the girls' identities and asked them how they treated Evan. At this time, Jenny still wanted to seduce George. But George didn't eat this at all. He heard Evan's movements, so he went to check if Jenny had stolen his medicine. Soon George found Evan and took off the underwear in his mouth. Evan told him that the two women were dangerous and asked him to close the door quickly. At this time the girls were destroying the sculpture. George threw down Evan and rushed out. He tried to stop the girls, but the girls didn't stop at all. George couldn't breathe again. He searched all over, but he couldn't find asthma medicine. Jenny slowly took out the medicine bottle and threw the medicine to Bill while George was chasing. The two threw it around like this and played George round and round. As a result, he accidentally fell and his head hit the cement base and died on the spot. The girls saw him fall to death and were shocked. Then they made a crazy laugh. They first put wet newspapers on George's body, then brushed the oil paint with a fan and made him look like a sculpture. Finally, they packed it into George's car. They told Evan that Tion Ilyong would also kill him. After that, they dug a hole in the yard. It looked like he was going to die. He used his feet to get off the tablet computer and tried to call for help by voice control. But the girls just took a break in the middle of the game. Jenny found his behavior, so she angrily threw the tablet out of the house. They were crazy about destroying the art pieces in the house and smashed the sculpture with a hammer. They also stabbed the knife hard, and the two were like beasts. They kept turning over the furniture in the house, and after they were almost done, they knocked Evan's head off and cut off his beloved bangs along the edge. Evan was tortured to death, but he could only watch the two madmen continue to destroy. A redkin fell on the ground in a fight. There was actually a pistol hidden inside. Jenny pointed at Evan with a gun, and then asked Belle to untie the rope and said she would give him another chance. They were going to play hide-and-seek with Evan. If they couldn't find Evan in 30 seconds, the two would leave here. After that, they ran around in shock. Evan hurriedly looked for a chance to escape. He took a small knife from the kitchen, but his garden stone was hit by a small car. The knife also slipped into the bottom of the car. Jenny quickly chased after him with a gun. Evan could only call for help desperately, but the girls were not afraid at all, because they knew early on that no one would be home today. The next morning they fell Evan heavily on the grass and then rolled up on the grass. Evan was tortured to death, and the two ruthlessly pushed him into the deep pit and helped him adjust his posture. No matter how Evan called for help, the girls didn't do anything. They kept struggling. Soon, Evan's head was left outside. Jenny took out her phone and let him confess to his wife. Evan pretended to agree but suddenly shouted to his wife to call the police. They had already expected Evan to do this, so they turned off the microphone in advance. Jenny tied Evan's mouth again, and then raised a big stone to threaten him to obey her orders. But Evan knew they wouldn't let him go, so he refused the girls' requests. Jenny then raised the stone. Looking at Evan's dumbfounded expression, the two girls laughed out loud. It was almost over. Jenny said they had secretly observed Evan for a long time, and thought he would refuse them because he had a happy family. Unexpectedly, the world was as dark as a crow, and they had been living like this for 4 years. After that, they were going to test the next target. Evan was so nervous that he was about to relax. The two turned around again, and Jenny took out the video they shot yesterday, posted it on the internet with Evan's account, and then put the phone in front of Evan's eyes. The two girls left with Evan's doggy umbrella, and Evan could only watch the video getting hotter and hotter. There were more and more comments and likes. He struggled to pull out one hand, wanted to delete the video, but accidentally pushed the phone down and gave himself a like. Not long after, the wife took the child home. When she saw the messy house, Kevin and the children were dumbfounded. The movie is over. Pay attention to the movie, the next step is more exciting.